And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Hope you're doing well, that you had a nice beginning of the week. It's the beginning of the week or Wednesday. Week is almost the weekend, guys. Almost the weekend. But before that, you have to deal with me. Sorry, not sorry about that. Welcome back for another interview about the EU. It's been a while since we had an interview in English. We've been pretty productive in French, but yeah, I'll catch up with you guys. I'm happy to be back with you. We're not doing an MEP. We're not doing, let's say, the usual suspect on the channel tonight, because with me tonight, I'm not having an MEP. I'm having Federica Bordelot, who is the Director of Policy at the Council of European Municipalities and Regions, who is also happen to be sponsoring tonight's stream, and so she is there to tell us about what exactly CEMR, so the acronym, that's how I will be calling that, because otherwise the Council of European Municipalities and Regions, every question that's going to be a bit long. So she will tell us what CEMR is doing and advocating for. So first, what is CEMR? So the Council of European Municipalities and Regions. So it represents 60 national associations of municipalities and regions from 40 countries in Europe. So if you do the math, you realize it's not just the EU, it goes a bit beyond. And they cover more or less over 100,000 local governments between regions and municipalities. So in Brussels, they advocate, they lobby on behalf of this association and on behalf of cities and local governments at EU level and beyond. And they serve as a platform so that regions, national associations discuss among them and find common point of interest. So we will discuss why cities and regions want to influence EU politics and what for. But as usual, before we start the interview per se, a small reminder of the house rules for anyone who would be new with us tonight. So our guest will be with us for 1 hour. After that, she will go and enjoy your evening, and you will be stuck with me for another 30-45 minutes to debrief the interview, discuss about complete, let's say, the themes that we will discuss tonight, answer additional questions, and have a chat, generally speaking. You know how it works. I have prepared my questions as usual for Mrs. Bordelot. Of course, you have the chat. You have the right to react. You can suggest questions as well, and I will pick among your suggestions if they are relevant, timely, if we have time, and everything. So as usual, don't hesitate to react and suggest questions. While doing it, of course, without spamming and of course, a positive way, in a positive mood, but that's always the case here, so I'm not worried about it. I think we have covered the main points. I'm looking at my notes, and we're good. So I guess we're going to start with the interview itself. Hello, Federica Bordelot. Thank you very much for being with us tonight, answering our questions. So first, before I start the interview talking about CEMR and what you do, I want to talk a bit about you. So I introduced very briefly who you are. You're a director of policy, but let's go back in time. Before you were a director of policy, what's a bit your story? Like, how did you end up in Brussels defending cities and regions at EU level? How does one become a director of policy?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you. Thanks to you for this opportunity. Happy to be here and to join this session in Twitch. So about me. So I've been in Brussels for the past 14 years. And I have to say I've always worked with and for local and regional governments. I started my career in Brussels in another association that was an association, a political association of regions, so representing regional governments on more innovation and space technologies. And then I moved to another association representing cities and municipalities. It's Eurocities, and I've been working always in policy. So policy issues are advocating the needs of cities, municipalities, and mainly on innovation, smart cities, policies, and digitalization. I mean, digitalization was my area of work, if you like. And then I've been I grew as well in my professional career. So I also then managed a team, a group, dealing with really all different activities. So it was not only policy. So it was, of course, lobby and advocacy, but then it was also project, project management, and also knowledge sharing activities. And then, okay, I said, let's move up in professionally and also physically, because actually, I stay in the same building, which is actually the house of municipalities and regions in Brussels. And I just moved a few floors up, and I ended up in CEMR, and as director of policy and impact. And then maybe I will tell you a bit more also on the impact part.
Yeah, sure. So you spend your entire career, as you say, working on regions and municipalities, but then why do municipalities and regions actually need like a specific representation in Brussels? Because you could say, well, they are public authorities, so they are represented by the state, they're represented by France, Germany, the national government. So why do you need a specific thing for regions and municipalities?
Well, for many different reasons. The first one is that there are different competencies, there are different responsibilities between the local level, the regional level, and then the national level and the EU. And then, so you actually need all the players also to achieve, if you like, the EU, let's say, objectives, the dream, and in the case of local and regional governments, so we always say it, but it's because it's the truth, that are the closest level to the citizens, to the people. They are those that actually know better what the people need, want at territorial level, and this is something important when you need to shape EU policies, because they need to be based on people needs. So that's why we are important.
I have a first question in the chat, like on the naming conventions, because in Brussels everything is called Council, Europe, and regions and everything. So someone is asking, what's the difference between the Council of Municipalities and Regions and the Council of Regions, which is actually the Committee of Regions, but the
Committee of the Regions, yes. Yeah. Well, that's one of the common questions, if you like, so, well, first of all, we were born before even the Committee of the Regions. When I say we are the first established organization and representing all local and regional governments, it's really the truth, because it's over 70 years that we are working in Brussels, representing municipalities and regions. We are going beyond the EU member states, so it's not only the 27 member states, but it's really representing 60 national association of local and regional governments in all over the EU. And then, what I also, in a way, like to stress is that our independence, if you like, we are a membership organization, and we work with our members, paid by our members, to do the interest of our members, which are the association, National Association of Local and Regional Governments. So.
And also, since you're independent, like if we compare, so the question was about the Committee of the Regions. Like the Committee of Regions is an official body of the EU. You're completely independent from the institutions.
It's not the new institutions, but yes, it's very much linked and related, with the EU institutions.
And you already mentioned that you go beyond the EU. You represent for association from 40 countries, so almost double the size of the EU. So what is actually the added value for countries that are not part of the EU to have people working in Brussels, mainly on the EU?
Yeah. Well, so there are many reasons. As I said, we are we represent all the national association within the 27 member states, and we represent. But we go much beyond that, and. The fact that also associations that are not within those 27 member states are represented by us also vis-a-vis the EU institutions is important, because in many cases, even if they are not members of the EU, they still need to implement many policies. Sometimes is not known, outside maybe Brussels, or but for instance, Norway has interinstitutional agreements, with the EU, and they actually implement, for instance, all the Green Deal policies, So it is extremely important for them to actually be represented, towards the EU institutions and advocate their needs as well, towards the EU. And then, I mean, as I was saying, we also have a seat in other organizations like OECD, like the Council of Europe. So we go definitely beyond the only EU. EU matters and EU institutions.
And what's the share like in terms of work? Like, are you like 50% EU, 25% Council of Europe, 25% OECD? Or what's a bit the
no. I never done the math, honestly, in that sense. We are, we really have advisor officers that work, that they are specifically dedicated to follow all the work of the Council of Europe, and also we have collaboration with the OECD, and we work with them. Of course, I mean, as you can imagine, we are in Brussels. We are. Our main advocacy and lobby is vis-a-vis the EU institutions. That's clear.
A related question on the fact that you represent members also outside of the EU. Is there a lot of divergence between the needs of municipalities and regions within the EU and those that are outside of the EU? Is there like different characteristics and needs? Or the needs of a region is the same whether they are inside the EU or outside?
No, I don't think the differences between within or outside Europe is more, geographically. I mean, north, south, eastern, east, western. The size, of course. I mean, we represent all different municipalities, cities, and municipalities of all size. So urban areas, rural areas, and so the difference are more in the, a territorial level of the, and then also culturally, I mean, you can imagine, I mean, there are many different differences, at territorial level, but
so that sounds like, of course, a lot of work, representing that many members in that many different organizations. So how big is the CEMR, like in terms of, not the membership, but the staff, like how big is the organization?
We are roughly between 30 and 40 people as a staff.
A good team,
yeah.
Pretty big team.
Including everything. So policy and advocacy, but also communication, administration, and so on.
And going back to the EU, because of course, we're talking mostly about EU policy. So the EU has been active for 70 years, over 70 years now. How does the EU both benefit and impact cities? Like how much should a municipality care about what's happening in the EU? How much should the region care about what's happening in the EU? In their daily functioning, let's say.
Yeah, well, they do care. I don't know if then people really, all citizens understand this or realize this more, but about 70% of the EU legislation has an impact at local and regional level. This is huge if you think then at your normal life, and if you think as a person, as a citizen, and if you think about the services that you actually benefit at local and regional level, it can be transport and mobility, public services, but also all, I mean, in the last, let's say, 5 years, the still current EU term, there have been a lot of legislation, the famous Green Deal, let's say, strategy and package of which, I mean, the European Commission legislate a lot on climate and energy policies and all environmental policies, and this has a real impact at a local and regional level. And so, yeah, this is I think the reason why it's also important, for local and regional governments to be here and to really make their voice heard.
Mm-hmm. And what are the CEMR, what are the main topics that you focus on? Because like you said, 70% of legislation impacts at some level the local regions, etc. So, but in terms of issue, like what are the main policy on which you work mostly?
Yeah, well, we work on all different policy areas that have an impact on municipalities and regions. So we try to cover them all, if you like, and where local and regional governments have an interest, if you like. So it's also listening to them.
Mm-hmm.
We really listen to them and to their needs, and then also our priorities are based on their needs. When also a new legislation is out. But in terms of policy areas, we cover. I mean, as I was saying before, environmental policies, mm-hmm. Climate and energy, but also gender equality, inclusion, migration, digital transformation, employment. Maybe sometimes it was difficult to me as well to realize that actually in many municipalities, the governments, the public governments, are the biggest employer. So they really work as employers because they give job to many people. Mm-hmm. So of course employment is also a key issue, but also we work also on better regulation, better governance and regulation. We work on democracy. We work on local finance. We work on cohesion, territorial cohesion, economic cohesion, social cohesion. So these are pretty much. Well, we worked also on international cooperation and decentralized cooperation. We have a specific program that is working on that. So it's we work on many different things.
I can see that actually. But now we'll try to take a bit of the pieces because I don't think we'll be able to cover everything. Otherwise, we'll be there tomorrow. Let's talk about the environment because you mentioned it. Like the Green Deal has been like the big piece of legislation or package of legislation this mandate. So how did the municipalities and regions like digest the Green Deal? Like what impacts you particularly? What were the particular issues that you were very active on, and how in the end are you satisfied or not with what came out of the pipeline?
Yeah. So this is interesting because then it helps me also to link with the current work that we are doing, because we worked on many different files. Honestly, the team really worked hard on all the water waste management, for instance, or legislation about soil, legislation about energy performance of buildings. I mean, we really try to cover all the different, let's say, topics, issues where they really have an impact at the local level, and this is so we looked into many different pieces of legislation, so regulations and directive this year, and we are currently developing a study on the implementation of the Green Deal legislation. So what we are doing is really because all this legislation has already, some of them, not all of them, but are already taken into effect, and now have started to be implemented at also a local and regional level. And now we are studying this implementation, so understanding the challenges, the needs that local and regional governments, the cities, municipalities are having in implementing this legislation, and so also to understand a bit of some key messages, some lessons learned also for the EU, the next EU term and the next Commission. And we are having a focus on 13 different legislations. And this is interesting. I had a meeting this morning with the team, and we were discussing, because, analyzing the effects, the impact of 13 legislation, 13 regulations, between regulations and directive. Sometimes when you think that the package, is enormous, that the legislative work was really, heavy and vast, sometimes you don't realize, in numbers what this means, but working, in the past 4 years, if you like, for a bit more, and they are not all. I mean, 13 are only those, are all the Green Deal, let's say, legislation.
Yeah, there's all the rest. Yeah.
That we focus. No, but even within the Green Deal strategy and the package, we are not covering all of that. We are covering the majority. But just to say that really it's enormous, the work. And then, therefore, all the, let's say, what this means at a local level. I mean, what this means at municipality level. Because once a regulation comes into effect, then you really need to have also all the means, all the resources, to really implement it. This means lawyers, first of all, to really understand what's there, and how you need to implement it, because you are responsible to implement that. You need to have the financial resources. You need to have, a lot of competent people and employees that are really there to implement those legislation.
And overall, like, have your members been satisfied with the Green Deal? Like, or they're not thinking, it's too heavy, because there's a lot of backlash, a movement of backlash in the around the EU against the Green Deal, with many people saying, it's too much, it's too heavy, it impacts us too much. Like, municipalities, what was their take overall on the Green Deal? For them, is it reasonable to manage, or they would have preferred something lighter? What's the feeling there? Let's say.
Well, let's say that I don't want to spoil also the results of our survey, but in a way, let's also put it this way. I think is now time to really focus on the implementation. I think that all this legislation, sometimes, I mean, it was really needed, to also revise some directives and some regulations. I'm thinking, for instance, about the TNT, the regulation that was approved. I think it was today.
Was the TNT regulation?
Transport.
Okay, transport. Okay. Because TNT, I was thinking explosives. Like, what do the explosives have to do with the Green Deal? I missed something.
we talked about not to use acronyms, and voila.
Yeah.
So I think in many cases it was they were welcome, these pieces of legislation. But now it's really the time, I think, to focus on the implementation and to understand what is happening, at state level, at local and regional level, and to really understand the effects, to really understand also the related possible challenges, and what are the additional needs that are needed, like in terms of resources, and yeah.
And you also mentioned at some point that you're working on issues related to social issues, employment issues, because you said that regions and municipalities are big employers at local level. But the EU does not have extensive competencies on social issues, on employment issues. So, for instance, like, what are the actions of the EU that are relevant in social and employment issues that then municipalities and regions care about? What kind of legislation are we talking about?
Well, but for instance, we are part of a social dialogue that it's one of the instruments of the European Commission to really work on certain topics and to bring together certain players and stakeholders to that they can really advise also the EU Commission on certain topic, and we are part of a social dialogue on employment, and so we are representing employers there.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's one, for instance, of our let's say work in that sense. But we work also a lot in terms of gender equality. Gender equality is one of our key, let's say, also areas of work, and where we are also proud to to communicate about, because we were possibly the first association for sure in Europe, but also globally. We are really used as example on developing an European Charter for equality for women and men. And this was already launched in 2006.
Okay, so a while ago, yeah.
Quite a long ago, but it's still alive and is still implemented. I mean, it includes a number of principles for equality of men and women in local and regional governments, and also it includes a number of actions on how to implement the charter. So also one of the key actions is to develop an action plan, for instance, and we are helping as well the municipalities and our members. I mean, our associations in that.
And concretely, what does this what does this charter involve? Like, do you say, okay, there must be gender equality, like equal number of men and women in I don't know, in staff? Or how concretely, what are we talking about in terms of?
Well, also in terms of all the policies that need to be implemented, you know, at territorial level to really ensure representation and ensure participation of women also. And for instance, in that sense, we are also currently developing a study on women. It's called Women in Politics, which really looks into the not only in terms of quotas, but really in terms also of what is their role, you know, within local and regional governments and how they are represented. Because, you know, we always say, I mean, sometimes we don't have the exact numbers, and the women are always represented, but at the lowest level, you know, of the pyramid, if you like. Yeah. And so this is it. And we are also looking into a very critical aspect, which is violence against elected politicians, women politicians. And this is actually an interesting study that we are developing also especially this year, because it's really also the election year, as we all know. You know, it's not only the EU elections, but there are many other elections in over 60 countries, I think.
That sounds about right, yes.
That's the number. So also at local and regional governments, many elections, not only Europe as well. We have also the US. So, I mean, this is a crucial year, and we are also looking at the aspect of violence, because this is unfortunately more and more common issue, especially towards elected politicians. And I'm also talking about cyber violence. So the more and more also use of digital technologies, you know, to really attack also women in that sense. And
so speaking of that, the EU just adopted, I think this week, a new directive on violence against women. Is that a file you were active on because of that part? Yes. So, for instance, concretely in this file, like what were you pushing for instance? Because there's been like this file covers many issues. There's been a lot of discussion about whether or not there should be a EU definition of rape or not, etc. But there's also cyber violence and everything. So, what was your input, let's say, in this kind of regulation?
Well, it was really about ensuring, you know, that all measures are put in place to tackling, you know, violence against women. But it was not only women. I mean, it's about many other, you know, underrepresented, let's say, population. And then it's. I mean, we are really advocating to taking serious measures, because sometimes is more a kind of a slogan, you know, and that is high on one day or a week, and then is forgotten. So I think that many measures are taken into account and really into practice, but it's something that we need to raise awareness and to keep high the attention on these aspects and really give visibility. And that's why also we develop these studies, you know, because with the concrete data, with concrete information, we can then really demonstrate what is the risks, you know, and what are what is the current situation and which actions are needed.
So there seems to be, like, from what you're telling me, that a lot of the things that you're doing actually are going through studies. It's not just like advocacy and acting on legislation that are currently proposed, but also like just gathering data and look at what the data is saying.
We are not a research centers, and actually,
no, of course, but that's part of the job that you're doing, data gathering.
Part of the job, but I think this is extremely important because gathering data is really what can also, you know, they serve your argument, you know, when also advocate your issues vis-a-vis the EU institutions. If you don't have data in your hands, what do you advocate for? You know, I mean, you need the data. But I mean, just to say, I mean, those two studies are key. They are key pieces of work for this year. But then also we work also with all the members, you know, even bilaterally or in expert groups, you know, to really then gather all the needs and then we work. I mean, all the, let's say, the policy advocacy work that we do is a constant work, is a daily work that we do, is built in years, as you can imagine. You know, also it means a lot of contacts, you know, with all the players also here in Brussels. Also, it's also working in partnership, and this is also something that I like to stress: the fact that. I mean, whenever is needed. I mean, of course, we have our own interests, and we do advocate those interests, you know, directly as an association. But it's also important to join forces with other, you know, associations or other players and stakeholders. It can be think tank, it can be other kind of, you know, organization. It can be the Committee to the Regions, for instance. We work with them, with it closely, because this means, you know, that our messages are stronger, you know, and we can. I mean, whenever we share the same messages and whenever we share the same vision, of course, it's really important to go united in that sense.
And among the topics that you mentioned, like whether it is Green Deal, whether it is violence against women, you mentioned migration also as the issues that you tackle. Some of these issues are very heavy politically and very sometimes very divisive politically within the EU. But like you said, there are differences between the West, South, East, etc. So, is there files that have been like very complicated to find common ground even within your membership, like to agree between the region of Eastern Europe, a region of Western Europe, or Northern Europe, etc., and that maybe force you to have a bit take a bit of a step back on certain issues that are too politically divisive for your members?
I can say probably all of them. I mean, it's but this is the beauty as well of an European association. I think is really then working, you know, within you know, we call it working groups or expert groups, you know, and really putting on the table all the different needs and find compromises. This is, I mean, something that they all do, you know. I mean, also within the EU institution, the 27 member states within the council. That's
basics in Brussels, yeah.
This is the basic, you know, and this happens at all levels. I mean, it happens also, you know, within municipalities and regions. Of course, there are different realities, but there are key principles, you know, which we share and we advocate for. And for instance, I mean, the place-based approach, you know, the territorial approach. This is really important, you know. Also, the fact that I mean, we represent local and regional governments, so all municipalities and regions and all urban and rural areas, you know. And this is really important for us, you know, to really also, let's say, ensure that there is also cooperation, you know, and equality, the same level, for instance, of public services. I was reading the Letta report recently, that it was recently launched on the single market. And I think that one of the interesting messages was the fact that, so he said, there is a right to live, but there is also a right to stay. And this, for me, is extremely important, because what does it mean, a right to stay? A right to stay means that a person has the right to have ensured all the public services that needs, the infrastructures that needs, the right to really have a good, high quality of life, and don't feel the need to live, not be forced to live. So, and who is ensuring these public services in many cases is our local and regional governments.
And speaking of public service, like something that you often hear about the EU is this idea that the EU doesn't like public services because they want to impose competition, etc., etc. What's the? I'm not saying that whether it's right or not. It's another matter. But like, how does the CEMR like approach this issue of public services? Because as you say, like particularly when you are in rural areas, you need access to public services, to a number of basic services, so that you are free to live where you want to live.
Yeah. Well, we approach it, for instance, with important policies like cohesion policy. I think that, cohesion policy is one of the cornerstone of the EU as a policy itself. And we really think that, what we see currently is that local and regional governments are struggling even in providing the basic services, not even in innovate, in terms of public services and develop new and innovative or updated services, but even the basic ones, because there are lack of financial resources, because there are lack of resources in general, So this is really for us an important areas of work, cohesion, where we really we advocate strongly our messages that are, for instance, the fact that it should be still also in the next programming period, in the next MFF, remain a cornerstone of the EU, and also in terms of funding, to really receive ambitious funding, for dedicate ambitious funding for the cohesion policy.
Yeah, because just for the audience who doesn't necessarily know, the cohesion policy is basically the regional policy, so the funding that are dedicated to regions, particularly to the poorer one, to help them like catch up with the rest. That's in short the idea is what, 1/3 of the EU budget.
Economic cohesion.
Yeah. And in EU budget, I think it's like 1/3 roughly of the budget. Yeah.
Yeah, but well, actually, what we advocate is that there should be at least 1/3. Is not so is and the future doesn't look bright in that sense. So it's every 7 years roughly, when you have the new MFF, then so the new programming period, and when the budget of the EU is renegotiated, then there are always compromise also to reach in that sense. And unless you increase the budget of the EU, so you ask the member state to actually pay more and give more budget to the EU, the budget is always the same. And then it's a question of math. If you give more there, you need to take
away from someone else. Yeah, of course. And since we're talking about cohesion policy, so funding that is given to region, municipalities, etc., a topic that has been long discussed in this is the question of simplification. How it's very nice to have EU funding, but then it has to be manageable by region and municipalities. To have access to it, that it's not too complicated to have access to it, and also that they have freedom to decide what the money should be spent on. That it's not Brussels that's going to decide how money is going to be spent in a small corner of Romania, let's say. So how do you approach this issue of managing concretely all the funds that are eligible for regions and municipalities?
Well, first of all, what is important to stress is the fact that local and regional governments should be involved since the beginning into the design phase of all the programs. And this is crucial because when you design a specific funding program where actually, decide how the money should be spent, and you don't ask those that at the end will actually receive those money or where all the money at the end of the day will be spent, then of course there is something wrong. And so this is the first important thing that should be based on local territorial needs, if you like, that we need. So it's the principle of the multi-level governance. What we say is really making sure that that all decisions are really also taken in at all level of governance, in coordination, if you like. And then, of course, the flexibility of using this funding, based on the specific needs. So we are definitely advocating for having, more flexibility in how this funding are used. But this is, a second step then. It would be already great, if we are consulted, ensured, to be consulted, since the beginning. This was, for instance, also the case of the Recovery and Resilience Facility, which was the funding that it was given, to overcome the pandemic.
Yeah, it's the recovery fund, basically, of post-COVID recovery fund. Post-COVID
fund, and that was already. I mean, we had a meeting. I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago on the implementation of the RRF and the implication also at city and regional level, and the fact that because local and regional governments were not always consulted, at the design phase, of the different plans, of the national plans, it resulted in many dysfunctions, in many resources that cannot be spent now. I mean, there are the money, but they cannot be spent, in the fact that they didn't calculate the fact that actually, I mean, you might have the money, but you don't have the people, the resources, the manufacturers that actually should do, like infrastructures, they can build a school, but if you don't have enough company at territorial level that can really, do the job, then you could have the money, but you don't have the resources.
Can't do anything with it,
So, it's really important to plan well and design very well in advance, considering all the different interests and needs.
Another question on cohesion policy, and there the chat and I had the same idea. In your membership, you have Ukrainian organizations, and of course, Ukraine is a candidate to join the EU. And one of the debates around Ukraine joining the EU, as far as cohesion policy is there, is that the impact it could have, because the needs for Ukraine in terms of cohesion policy would be so much that a number of countries that currently benefit a lot from cohesion funds would have this fund drained and be given to Ukraine, because Ukraine has a bigger need for that. So is that something that you discuss internally and make recommendations on how to deal with a potential adhesion of Ukraine and the impact on things like cohesion funds, agricultural funds, these sort of things? Because in a way, I can't expect some of your regions that are very happy to see potentially a big part of EU budget going to someplace else where they also might want to use it.
Yeah, well, the budget of the EU is big. And we could definitely find the specific resources, also for the potential new countries. In any case, I mean, it's also a matter of to deal this enlargement in a very, let's say, regulated manner, to really evaluate all the possible also risks, and help, also them to be integrated in a certain way. And then certain decisions need to be taken, of course. I mean, this is something that I mean, if we decide to go, towards enlargement, in one way we will receive some money. I mean, the EU budget will increase, but at the same time, of course, we need also to possibly reform the way we spend those money. So it's, I mean, it's something that goes even beyond, if you like, even the member states. I mean, it's really something that needs to be discussed at a different level. This is a responsibility also of the member states. On how this funding should be then differently allocated. But it's I mean, a first analysis, of course, of what are the resources and how it needs to be spent really has to be done, involving, all the players, those that are currently benefiting, of those funding, and those that will possibly then benefit them.
A final question, let's say on the policy part. So you advocate on a lot of different issues, very different topics, and you say indeed you are, municipalities are, let's say, the closest thing that is to citizens. But do you feel that in Brussels, whether it is to the Commission, to the Council, to the Parliament, that you are, and cities and regions are well listened to? Do people actually, when you say, hey, I'm representing cities and municipality, cities and regions, they stop and say, okay, let's talk and let's find solution? Or do you think that you're not given enough attention given the importance of your membership, let's say?
Yeah, well, for sure, the attention to cities and regions grew a lot in the past years. This is also clear in the many different initiatives that are focused on cities and regions that have been launched in the past years. I'm thinking about the Covenant of Mayors, for instance, so on climate and energies. So, I mean, many political initiatives and more technical as well. I'm thinking about the 100 Cities Challenge initiative that is more on digitalization and economic development under DG Grow. I mean, there are many, and Living.eu, it's about also digital transformation and upscaling of digital solutions. But there are many. I mean, the mission on smart cities. It's one of the flagship, one of the missions of the EU that is really it's a key initiative dedicated to cities. Now, all this is great, is important, but of course there is still more to do. And thanks also to other players, other networks, other associations, more sectorial. I mean, I'm thinking, for instance, on climate, working only on climate or only on mobility. We are really working closely to really ensure that our voice is heard. And then now, I mean, with the EU elections, it's extremely important to renovate. I mean, in a way, we need to start all over again. You have new MEPs in Brussels.
Yeah, we're going to discuss about that, indeed, about what happens after election. But before, let's talk first before what happens before the election. So EU elections are happening soon. So between the 6th and 9th of June, go register yourself and vote. How does an organization like CEMR approach this kind of event? Because you're a non-political organization, so you're not exactly saying, okay, go SND, go EPP, go Renew, or whatever. You have to stay neutral politically. But how do you play a role in the organization? Not the organization, but how do you approach the event of the elections? Like, are you taking specific actions related to the elections? Like, what's going on before the election for an organization like CEMR?
Yeah, well, we have developed with our members what we call our call to action. This is it, and it's our manifesto. It's a series of asks, if you like, to the new MEPs. Then we promote our messages in a number of different ways. I mean, we organize events where, for instance, we invite until now still the current MEPs. Now they are slowly less and less in Brussels, but the political groups as well. Then we really target also then all the EU institutions, the presidency, the commission, of course, and we try to really raise awareness about our messages. We organize events, we organize social media campaign, debates. We organize, we worked with also the media partnerships, and then we work with other networks, and with other associations, for instance, to also join forces and really also advocate more and more the messages.
So it's about putting your issues on the agenda, like making sure that your issues are visible for all the institutions and beyond in the context of the elections. And you just showed your manifesto, so the recommendations of CEMR for the elections to MEPs. For instance, what are the priorities that you are pitching to MEPs and for the next European Commission?
Well, everything that I just mentioned, in all this, in terms of, cohesion policy, for instance, ensuring, to really have a dedicated and ambitious budget on cohesion, but also more, let's say, cross-cutting, what I was saying about the multi-level governance principle or the subsidiarity principle, ensure that really decisions, actions are taken at the closest level to the citizens, so ensure that all these principles are recognized and are enhanced, but also all actions in terms of gender equality, as I was saying before, taking seriously, all this, for instance, violence against women. So it's, all the issues that I have talked about are in our manifesto, and it's there are concrete messages, and targeted messages to the European Parliament specifically, so that how, as well as an MEP, you can act within the European Parliament to really ensure that local and regional governments and their needs and their challenges are taken into consideration.
And if we look at this time after the elections, politically, it's expected that there's going to be a rise of the far right in the upcoming elections, up to 25%, according to the different polls. How does that more like a right wing with a lot of far right MEPs in the parliament? Is that something that impacts the way CEMR is doing their job? Or do you think it's going to be business as usual, whether there's 10% of far right or 25% of far right in the parliament?
No, of course it will have an impact. We are going to actually hold a debate for our policy committee, which is our, let's say, biannual event that we organize with our political membership, and we will organize it in June, right after the European elections here in Brussels. One of the policy debates that we have will be centered on the future of the EU. And future of Europe even more widely, and we will discuss also in terms of democracy, which kind of how to ensure, in a way that European values and democratic values are still high in the EU agenda. How to there will be an analysis of the vote to really see, based on this situation, what could be the possible scenarios. And we will discuss it at a political level with mayors, with ministers at regional level, to understand also what kind of impact this could have, at territorial level, and how actually the municipalities and regions could act, to ensure, that certain values, the basic values also of the European Union are maintained.
There it's more like about the values organization and how to let's say ensure they're still applied at local level. But I mean, here in the daily work in Brussels, if you have like a stronger far right in the parliament, how do you manage that? Like, are you like saying, okay, we'll just keep not talking to the far right and do business as usual, like, or you don't have a set policy and you're gonna wait and see what comes out of the elections? Like, it's more like how do you manage the parliament, a parliament with a bigger far right?
No, well, I mean, it's not because we are going to close our office because of this. I mean,
no, of course, I don't expect everyone is going to close their office, of course.
We will definitely talk with all the different parties, as we always have done in the past. I mean, we do not only refer to one political party. I mean, our interlocutors in the European Parliament are all the different political parties and all MEPs representing all the different parties. So, no, definitely, I mean, this it's more to, I mean, to approach them and to see to discuss and to deal with the different views. I mean, this is we I mean, with the MEPs we work specifically based on files, okay, on legislative files. So once they will be rapporteur or shadows rapporteur, or, you know, of a specific legislative file, then we will approach them, you know, to discuss and to bring forward our ideas, our needs, and the amendments. Of course, there are also many intergroups, and we will work with the intergroups, and we will work as we always done, you know, in the past, considering all the different views. I mean, the different views, and this honestly, what will happen at EU level, it will happen probably, it's the reflection also of a change that is a change that will also reflect at national level. It will reflect also at local and regional level, and is based on a democratic vote. So it's really something that we need to actually, what we should do is to actually think why we are going towards this direction. You know, I mean, what has been done, you know, probably what is needed to change, what has been done, you know, that brought this, you know, this result of the vote.
So for you, it's in a way, it's, since you're focusing on substance, doesn't matter if the rapporteur is EPP, SND, or ID, or doesn't matter. You're just talking about the issue and adapting to the various views, and that's it. That's
we discuss about the views. I mean, and views on the substance is one thing. Then, of course, they are led by political views as well. Of course, I mean, politics is everywhere. So it's. So, of course, I mean, if you decide, you know, at technical level to take this kind of a specific decision, it's also for sure, in a way, decided for a reason, you know, which is political. But yeah, we basically work on on the specific files.
All right, so I see that we're reaching an hour, so I promise that I would free you after an hour. Before you go, if people have to remember like one thing about CEMR, what it does, the priorities, what should they remember about you?
So that CEMR, because we always talked about CEMR, but it's the Council of European Municipalities and Regions that represent all local and regional governments, and that they, because they are the level closest to the citizens, they really represent the people and the citizens, and that we need to be more and more and always more heard, you know, and in at EU level, but not only, and that we need really, I think, to work in partnership with all the other level of governance to really ensure that the EU project is achieved and is met.
All right, that's very clear for me. So thank you very much, Federica Bordelot, for taking the time. Chat, make sure to thank her for her time. You can follow, well, if you want to have a look at the manifesto of CEMR for the elections, you can go on X. I put the at just below the VO feed, and from there you can follow to their website and find everything. Miss Bordelot, thank you very much. I hope that you enjoyed the experience.
It was the first time on Twitch.
You did well. You did well. No worries.
And I enjoyed very much. I like it.
Well, great. Well, I wish you a very good evening. Chat, stay with me. We're going to do the debrief. Bye, Federica. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, chat. Let me cut things and let's have a bit of a discussion. Let me know what you thought and everything. Up and meeting. All right, I'm all yours. So let's start with the beginning. So as you saw, it was written in big. I put it everywhere just so that everyone is informed. So tonight was a sponsored stream. So CEMR, so the Council of European Municipalities and Regions, approached me because they wanted to do a stream on the channel to reach out to outside the bubble and reach out to young people, which I think is a pretty good thing. And bold to an extent, especially for an organization in Brussels, because in the bubble, and I'm well placed to know that, and I always say that it's a mistake. Bubble tends to like to speak to the bubble. Talking outside the bubble is a bit risky because it's a bit more unpredictable. So you are scary to people, guys. Know that you scare people, and but yeah, I'm here to try to ease them into it and say, okay, you see, people are nice. They don't bite. They're young people. They just want to know more about what you do. And so tonight was the opportunity for CEMR to do that. I accepted the partnership because I thought it was interesting because they represent cities and regions. And as Ms. Bordelot said, well, let's say the level of politics that is the closer to people. We all live in municipalities, we all live in regions. We've been to our local schools, our local using local public service, etc. So it was interesting to know how and why they are representing at EU level and what do they advocate for, particularly since the EU dedicates a lot of resources to regions. So I see a chat. I see a question. CEMR has no link with European regions. It depends what you call European regions. They represent at European level regions. So they have a link with European regions, but it depends what you mean with European regions. Like their membership, yes, it's cities and regions. They represent regions. That's what they're here for. But yeah, basically, because there was the question, is it like the Committee of the Regions and everything? Because the Committee of the Region is it's a body of the EU. It's not an institution. So I'm explaining the thing. So in the EU, you have institutions. So the big body, the big boss in the EU. So you have the Commission, the Parliament, the Council, the Court of Justice. Those are institutions. And then you have bodies, which are a lesser level, like they are official, they are an official body, but like Dean is saying, they give advisory opinion. They're giving their opinion, but they don't have weight into legislation or proper weight. They don't have a say. They could not co-legislator, etc. And so you have among these bodies the Committee of Regions that is there to represent regions. So they're members of this body, so an official body of the European Union. They are representative of regions. So you will have elected people who are elected at local level. I know in France, in Paris, they will send someone at the Committee of the Regions to voice the views of the region of Île-de-France within the Committee of the Region. Bernard Toulouse Montpellier region, for instance, I don't remember what is the name of the region. Let's see the official name of this region. But yeah, normally yes. Although no, actually not. Yes and no. It's always complicated. CEMR is linked to it. Yes, because they represent people who represent the region. So they're defending the interest of the region of Toulouse, Montpellier, etc. However, the region of Montpellier, PACA, Île-de-France, etc., they're not direct members of CEMR. CEMR, they are an association of association, basically. Meaning that their members is not Ile-de-France, it's not Brittany, it's not Baden-Württemberg or whatever regions in the EU. Their members is an association at national level that gathers these regions. So you have at French level an association where you will have all the French regions, and this association will be the member of CEMR. So indirectly, they represent individual regions, but otherwise they're just a federation of association of regions and cities. Which is why, like, even if they represent, in the end, if you go to the very bottom of the membership, they represent over 100,000 local governments. The number of their members is 60. They have 60 members. So 60 national associations of regions and municipalities. And these 60 regions, 60 organizations represent 115,000 local governments and regions. So yeah, I hope it's clear-ish on the membership. It's always complicated when you have like it's easy when you have an organization that represents one company, one organization, but when you have a federation of association, it's a bit of a cascading effect, let's say. They can influence the subject of the text by knowing about it in advance in order to propose a version before the trial. Ah, yeah, you're talking about the advisory body. Yes, because I started about that. You're right. Thanks, Dean. So yeah, the committee of the regions, they're there to share what is the views of regions. And so when the commission on paper is thinking of an initiative, well, they will knock at the door of the committee of the region. They will knock at the door of the damn it, CS. The council, the Economic and Social Council, basically, which represent trade unions and employer associations. So they will knock at the door of these people and say, okay, we're doing something about, I don't know, waste as part of the Green Deal. Tell us what you think. And so the committee of the region will say what they think. They will give it to the commission, and the commission is supposed to take into account what they say. I do it like this because these bodies, unfortunately, are not really influential. I mean, they can influence some things way ahead in the process by giving some priorities, giving some data, etc. But once you have a legislation that is out, well, the influence is very limited. Like in my years, I've never seen anyone in the parliament say, "Wait, guys, we can't do that because the committee of the regions said that." Nobody ever says that. However, what they will do, well, what MEP will do, we say, oh, wait, I have a CEMR, so the private organization of regions and municipalities. They want this. I will listen to them because they have direct contact with MEPs, etc., etc. They can say, oh yes, we represent people from your regions and everything. So paradoxically, an organization like CEMR, so a lobby, has more influence on MEPs than the Committee of the Regions, because nobody listens to the Committee of the Regions. They meet once every I don't know when. So they're not a heavy player, a heavy hitter in the organization. So that's why also you have this kind of organization that exists on the side, so they can directly do lobbying to the commission, to the parliament, to the council, etc., etc. So yeah, that's a bit the history of this. Did I miss any questions? No, I didn't miss any question. Otherwise, what else did we discuss? So 70%. She said that 70% of legislation in the EU has an impact on local and regional level, which I'm ready to believe, because when you look at all the things that regions are doing. At some point, they're going to be involved, whether it's transport, health, education, single market, cohesion funds, and everything. At some point, you will always find a local region or local municipality that has to do something, which adds to their influence, of course, because they're going to say, yeah, well, what you do here impacts me, and therefore it impacts citizens and your voters. So you want us to be happy with the things that we have to do, because then it makes your citizens happy, and a happy citizen is potentially a happy voter for you. depending on where you stand. Sometimes some have more interest in having a pissed off voter than anything, but that's another topic. Something that she mentioned as well. I look at the list of topics that she mentioned that they work on: environment, gender equality, migration, social employment, democracy, pretty much everything under the sun, which makes sense when you are that big of an organization. It's not for nothing that they have like 30 or 40 people in their staff, which is huge. For a lobby, for an organization in Brussels, 30, 40 people, it's a very big organization. Like, so as you know, I work in a lobby. In my organization, we're like 4.5. Sometimes there's someone that works not just for us. 4.5. Google, they have like maybe 50 people. So for 30, 40 people, a very big team. A very, very big team, which again makes sense because they have a lot of issues to follow. What else did we discuss? Something that she mentioned, like not necessarily specific to CEMR, but more as a practice. She said, "Oh yeah, you know, when we do lobbying, when we do advocacy, sometimes we have to work with other organizations. We have to team up. So what does that mean? Is that of course they're not the only organization that is interested in your topic. There are plenty of organizations in Brussels, literally thousands and maybe not tens of thousands, but at least 10,000 organizations, if not more, probably more, interested in a lot of topics. And of course, you can't cover everything on your own. And you can't necessarily have huge weight on everything because, while some MEPs may care about a topic or a certain kind of sector, another will not care about that. And so to compensate that and to pool resources, often you have, in many cases, you have team-ups of organizations, so coalitions that are formed, where you have different organizations that may be from the same sector, similar sector, or sometimes also sectors that have nothing to do with one another, but that have a common agenda, meaning that on a particular topic, they will think more or less the same thing. They will have common interest. And so they will say, okay, let's work together, let's share information, let's share resources so that we demultiply our strengths, because you're much stronger if you go see an MEP, say, okay, it's not just me who thinks that, it's 10, 15, 20 other organizations. People will tend to listen to you more, and you can pool information, because then suddenly you don't only have your own pair of ears, you have 10, 20 different pair of ears, and you can pool resources, you can pool information, and know what's going on, and then potentially influence things. As long as you agree on things, that's the trade-off, because it's one thing to have to team up with people to be stronger, but you have to be to agree on stuff with them. And that's why you have, whenever you have coalitions, it's another difficult thing, because well, it's not just the view, let's say, of CEMR that would matter. It's the views of CEMR, Eurocities, whatever other organizations that would be in there, and you have to find compromises among yourself, because maybe that, I don't know, CEMR thinks something that is slightly different than Eurocities, and so you have to say, okay, you want this, I'm not certain about that, okay, let's find a compromise, a wording that satisfies us both. So before they can go out as a coalition and say, hey, look at us, here's a letter co-signed by 20 organizations representing X thing, X regions, X cities, or whatever, you have to negotiate, you have to find an agreement that everybody is happy with, and that's a process, that takes time. What is the biggest challenge in lobbying in the EU? Good question, actually. There's the first question. The biggest challenge for anyone in Brussels is one word: information. With two very opposite issues, if you are outside the institution and in institutions. Information is king. If you have information, you have then elements to be able to do to push for something or not push for something. So for a lobby, whatever, or again, when I say lobby, it can be a company, it can be an association, it can be an NGO. A lobby is whoever whoever is pushing an interest, is trying to influence public decisions. And so for a lobby, for an organization that is seeking to influence, information is very important. You need to know what's happening around there. Like, you need to know about initiatives in the commission. If you want to lobby the commission, well, you need to know what the commission is planning to do. Who is going to do that in the commission? What are they planning to do? Who, if you look at the parliament, who are the MEPs who care about these topics? What is their influence? This sort of thing. And then, so that's information where you need to gather to have an understanding of what's going on. And then based on this information, you can decide, you can have elements to say, okay, I should talk to these people, I should do this with the commission, or this topic I care, this topic I don't care, and you can make your choices. And then you also have information that you provide, because a lobby, an organization, is not only absorbing information, it's also one of its key roles is to give information. It's to say to the commission, to say to MPs, okay, let's say CEMR, we are the European regions and cities, this legislation impacts us this way. Or you're working on, I don't know, use of water, this is the amount of water that a city needs to function. This is the situation of public services around Europe. So they will give data, give information to, or try to give information to the institution so that it feeds their reflection and also potentially influence them. So that's the part of lobbies is gathering information, being able to process it and give information back. And the struggle is to be able to get this information. And that's where Manon is right when you say it depends on who you are and who you represent. Depending on the kind of organization that you are, you may have access to more or less information because you are a bigger or small entities, because you are a politically popular or unpopular kind of organization, because you have direct access to a number of data that you can then provide, or you don't have access to data. So depending on the kind of lobby that you are, you will have more or less access to information and the ability to give more or less information. So that's the part outside, let's say, for lobbies. There's the opposite. So the problem is that they don't necessarily have enough information and trying to gather information. In institutions, particularly if you look at MEPs, since I'm a former MEP assistant, that's the thing I can talk about the best, you have the opposite problem. In the sense that it's not that you lack information, it's that you have too much information. Because you're constantly bombarded with information about process, about people who want to send data to you, etc. And you're just drowning in data. There's always studies about everything, etc. And so the challenge when you are inside the institution, it's not to gather the data, it's to cut through the noise, to get the good data. That fits your agenda, that fits the thing that you need. So you're drowning in data and you need to be able to pick and choose the elements that are important for you. To feed your own reflection, take political decisions, etc. Information that you may share with the outside. For instance, you receive information on something, you may be able to say, I don't know, CMR, okay, you're saying that, but I have heard that this thing is happening, and CMR did not know this. So I say, oh, okay, good information, thank you, and we will see what we can do. So it's all about circulation of information. And for an MEP, an MEP and an assistant is about not drowning in information, getting the good data, the data that you need. And for a lobbyist, whoever it is to get the information and to get your information picked up by the MEP. Because like I said, MEP are drowning in information. So you're sending information, you're sending data to institutions to try to influence them, but you're not the only one to do that. There's tons of people doing the same. So what you want is then that the MEP picks up your data, your information. And that's part of the job, is to try to build connections, etc. so that you get legitimacy, you get recognized, and people say, oh yeah, okay, these guys, I know them, their data is serious, I'm going to use their data. Did I manage to do it? Well, yes, that's the job. That's the job to be able to cut through the noise. And that's also why you have a work of specialization. Because an MEP, their team, no matter how brilliant they are, they can't cover everything. You can't cover everything. Because you don't have it's impossible, you need to cover everything. Also because you don't have the competence to cover everything, because you're going to be in one particular committee. Let's say you are in the environment committee. where you're gonna deal with things that are related to environment. You're not gonna deal with things that are dealing with, I don't know, culture. Otherwise, you will go in the culture committee. And then you specialize even further. So you're gonna say, okay, within the environment committee, I'm gonna work specifically or mostly on health issues. I will not work on Green Deal or most of the Green Deal issues. I'm gonna focus on health issue because I don't know, the MEP is a doctor and he cares about healthcare, and so he wants to work on health. And so there you will filter information. You'll say, okay, everything that is not related to envy, out. I'm not interested. Everything that in envy that is not related to health, I'll put it aside. I will just keep an eye to monitor a bit, but that's not my core interest. Okay, I'm going to take only the data and information related to health policy. And then within health policy, you're going to be specialized on particular aspect of it. And so that's the way you cut through noise. You specialize and you say, okay, my turf is this. And then your challenge is to let other people know it, so that a lobbyist, his challenge is, it's very nice to send to all the MEPs in the world your information. If 90% of them do not care, well, you wasted time and resources. What you want to do is to provide the good information to the right person. So you need to know, for instance, that if you are working in environmental issue, you're going to say, okay, MEPs that work in the environmental committee in the parliament probably will be interested by my stuff. But then you say, okay, I need to pinpoint those who are working on my stuff. And at the right time, you're right. It's not just a question of picking the right people, but also picking the right time. Because if you provide the information too early or too late, it's useless. You need to provide the right information at the right time. And so you need to know who specializes on what. So that, let's say you have this MEP who specializes on health issue, you're not going to bother him, or you will not bother yourself to reach out to someone who works on it who doesn't work on your issue. On the contrary, well, you say, okay, I'm working on health. I know this guy is interested in health, so I will put resources, I will put focus on that guy because he's potentially interested in my stuff, and I want him to get involved in that. And you build then a relationship and a network around, so that's then in the parliament. Once you're identified, because the challenge for MEPs is cut through noise and be identified. You want people to know, okay, I'm the guy you need to see if you're talking about that topic. I'm the reference in that topic. So that then you gather all the people in this, and you become the center of gravity of that issue, which helps you gather the right data and everything. Do you have specific tools to categorize the information, tables with pros and cons, interest for you to see one person or another? No, there's not a tool per se. It's how can I explain that? Thanks, no brains. I'm very happy indeed to have had a sponsored shrimp. Hopefully that will be giving ideas to others. Not just because I appreciate the sponsorship, but because I'd like to see more organizations willing to go out there and tell you guys what they do, and so give you the opportunity to ask them questions. So I hope, by the way, that you thought that particular sponsorship, that particular topic was interesting for you. So let me know in the Discord and everything. But going back to what Dean is saying, you don't have a tool per se. You don't have a tool per se. It's more like you get the feeling. You see, okay, you need to see what are the topics that are relevant to you, to your MEPs. Get the message out there. Okay, I'm the guy you want to see on this. Gather the information, and then you do your own mapping first. You're gonna say, okay, if you want to have, let's say, have a balanced view, and then you have to listen to both sides of the arguments, etc. You're gonna do mapping and say, okay, on my topic there is these kinds of organizations that are present, and so you're gonna say, okay, I will try to meet as many people from that scope of organization as possible, so that I get data, and in the end I'm able to weigh the pros and cons and tell my MEP what's going on, and my MEP will take a decision based on technical data, so on the substance of a file, what is the thing that makes sense, what have they been convinced by in terms of argument, and then a political decision saying, okay, what is the political objective that I want to pursue, what is the sector that I want to defend, this sort of thing. And so any decision that is taken at political level is a combination of a technical dimension and a political dimension. And that comes with time. Like, once you're identified, it will come together. People will come say to you, and it's up to you to then, according to your mapping, say, okay, I will meet everyone, and then as you refine your view, the views of your MEP on the political priorities and everything, you're gonna say, okay, well, then within that scope of organization, well, actually, I agree with this part, only half of them, and the other half, actually, they will be my opponents. And so that change also the rapport, the report that you have with them, because one of them will be your opponents, so you may still talk to them from time to time, but they're not convincing you, and you disagree with them. And on their side, they know that potentially you're lost cause. They're not going to convince you, so they're going to try to circumvent you. And on the other side, the part that you agree with, you will coordinate with them even more, because they will be a key source of data. You will share information with them, and that will help you to try to get your argument that is supportive of their side win in the end politically in the file in question. But it's not it's not a tool, it's not something that is formal. It's really a question of doing your mapping, and then with practice and knowledge of your MP and your own technical knowledge, because it's also a question of recognition of the MEP and the team. If you have a lobby that sees that an MEP is inactive or is not very competent in something, they're not going to invest a lot of energy in getting them to do something. They would rather invest in time and energy into an MEP and a team that is very knowledgeable about the topic and that is active and influential. So it's very much like a game of chess with very, very, very different, many different levels and factors that enter into play. Are we done with the lobbying segue? So I love talking about that, but just checking a thing. No, okay, we're good. Okay, I'm moving on to something that I wanted to discuss particularly, that we mentioned in passing today, and that is also important. It's the question, the cohesion policy. The cohesion policy, it's the regional policy. So the money that the EU is giving to regions to finance them, basically. It's 30%, so 1/3 of the EU budget. That's quite a lot of money for, if you look at the long term, the 7-year budget, because the EU has a national yearly budget, so budget for 2024, 23, 22, etc. And then you have a long-term budget for a period of 7 years to give a bit of an objective, let's say, to the spending. And if you look at the 7-year period, the EU, the cohesion policy, it's about 400 billion euros. So quite a lot of money. Quite a lot of money. But this money is not just going like this, all cities or region. The money that you give, that you distribute, you being the EU, it's mostly targeted, if you speak about cohesion policy, helping, let's say, the poorer regions catch up with the richest. Let me show you something, because as always, I am prepared. Up there, I put aside something because I knew we were going to talk about cohesion policy, because you know I prepare my streams. So what I want to show you in particular is this map, and of course the image broke. We're victim of sabotage, chat. Here I'm. There you go. All right. Try again. Where's the map? We're victim of sabotage, chat. I'm bragging about preparing my stream, and I'm not able to show the image I want. If I unzoom, no, it's gonna be the same. Okay, screw this. If I maps. Okay, screw this. We're gonna work with this. So here you have a map of Europe, and you look inside. It's the regions, the European regions. And you see different shades of color. The redder the color is, the more EU funds you get, according to the cohesion policy. It links more or less to how poor, if I really simplify things, is how poor is your region. And the poorer your region is, the more EU funds you will get because you have a bigger need for infrastructure, you have bigger needs for support for social issues, etc., etc. So that means that the cohesion policy is not evenly spread. Huh? You see that, for instance, so you have three different kind of categories. You have the less developed region, the more developed regions, and then those in between, the transition. The less developed, of course, get a lot of money. And you see, like for instance, in Germany, everything that is West Germany used to be Western Germany. Well, they tend to be the richer region, and so they receive less EU funds from the cohesion policy because they are already fairly advanced. They still get money for some priorities, but they don't need as badly the money as what used to be Eastern Germany, because they were much behind because of the Soviet bloc and everything. If you go into Eastern Europe, you see that it's red everywhere because they were so behind in terms of economic development, in terms of infrastructure development, that they are concentrating not all, but a big part of the funds, which is one of the key contributors why, for instance, Poland, Hungary, and I think Greece are the three biggest beneficiaries of EU funds in the EU. They're the three biggest because, well, for many different reasons, but notably because their regions are poorer, and so they need bigger support from the EU. So yeah, that's the map of the EU per region, and you see that money tends to be concentrated on these because they need to do catch up. Like last year, I was on holiday. Sorry, I'm telling you my life. Deal with it. Last year I was in Czech Republic, and everywhere you were going, you were having like these signs co-funded by or funded or co-funded by the European Union. And so do that back home. Look around. When you go to a train station, when you see I don't know an infrastructure train station, highways or this sort of thing, check to see if you don't have a sign somewhere saying co-funded by the EU. And depending on where you're from, you may see a lot of them. Then there's a classic games within cities and regions. I know that because my boss used to work on regional policy. A number of regions. So normally when you receive EU funding, you're supposed to display, I got EU funding, and so you have the EU flag which say co-funded by the EU. Say, okay, look, it's something that came from the EU, it benefits citizens. A number of people in regions sometimes forget to put the EU banner, the EU flag, etc., to be able to say, oh look, I built that. It's thanks to me that you got this new train station. Vote for me for the next election. So regularly you have the commission who have to go to check. Have you put the sign to say that okay, you were able to do your train station, but because we also fronted out a lot of cash. So it's a bit a game of cat and mouse between institutions, the EU, the Commission particularly, and local regions and municipalities on the ground. That's one of the big classics. Or sometime before visit of MEPs or commissioners in the regions, you will have the communication advisor that will go all around to put back the EU flag to make sure that when the MEP visit, the flag will indeed be there. It was with the recovery funds. It got completely blended in national programs, so no one knows the money came from the EU. I have to say I didn't check too much the way the EU fund, the recovery fund, has been let's say advertised as being funded by the EU, because so The recovery fund is a different thing from the regional policy, because there it's not on the... Okay, let's back up. How is the money spent? It's not just the EU writing a check to member states and say, okay, here's your money for your regions, deal with it. Now the way it's done, it's a lot of power is given to regions, to local level. So it's the regions that will say, okay, I receive X millions from the EU, and I'm the one who will decide and deploy the funds in my regions, because well, you're the one at local level, so you know what your people need. So you have to do a bunch of reporting to the commission. You have to coordinate with your national government on the different program, etc. But in the end, the main entity to decide how the funds is being used for cohesion funds, so regional fund, is the region. They're the one who decide more, who have the bigger weight. The recovery fund functions differently, because there it's the government that is the center. It's basically the EU writing a check to the government, and the government before that saying, okay, if you give me the check, that's how I'm going to spend it. And so they write a national program where, before getting the funds, where they say to the commission, okay, this is how I plan to use the funds. And that plan has to be approved by the commission, who says, okay, that's in line with the criteria, because you need to invest, I don't have the exact figure, I think it's like 40% of the money that you receive, you need to invest it into the green transition, 20% into the digital transition. So it's not just free money, you have to invest it in certain categories. And so you have the national programs that needs to be approved by the commission to make sure that it's well spent. And then once they write the check is returned, it goes into the national budget, and then they just use the money however they need, in accordance with the national plan. Is there a lot of transparency on how the recovery fund is used at the local level? That I don't know. I expect that there is reporting from the commission, because the commission does not like to give free money without having a say on how it's being spent. So I'm certain that there is. Actually, let me check. Where can I find this? Recovery fund. Local investment, maybe? Local projects. Let's see what it gives us there. So, Recovery and Resilience Facility. Okay, I may have something. God damn it, why am I not allowed to access this page? I should be allowed to access this page. Okay. Okay. Give me a sec. Let's see if we found what we want. So here I looked for Belgium, like the Recovery and Resilience Plan of Belgium. And here you see, okay, they have a map on the things that were funded by that. Reforms. Okay, you zoom on Brussels. I zoom there. Okay, so yeah, you have a form of transparency, but you're right, Van Andra, that the Court of Auditors, so the body of the EU that checks that money is well spent, has been critical as well on how the recovery fund has been used, or not used in some cases. I mean, there's been a number of cases, but the authorities are looking into misuse of the recovery fund, like in Italy, in Greece, and everywhere. So there's a lot of issues on the scrutiny. But on paper, you can see at least some of the projects, or you can see that it's not huge. Like you see on Belgium, the map is France. Let's take France. Oh no, it's, let's say, France. How many projects do you have? Okay, no, we're going to look at Italy, because Italy is the one that got the biggest share of the recovery fund. What's the website? Let me copy paste that to you. You said you were from Portugal, right? Let's check Portugal then. No, not Romania. I said Portugal. Okay, Portugal. Okay, Portugal. Where do you want us to look? North, south? Because there's a few projects here and there. So direct me if you want me to see Lisbon. Where will I find Lisbon? South. Lisboa. So we have 13 projects in Lisbon. Digital, and so you see the colors. Like I said, the recovery fund is. Why do you freak out, map? Is color coded, but more precisely, they have to be dedicated to specific priorities. So depending on, so you see that blue, it's about things on healthcare. Oh no, it's more varied things. So this looks to be the innovation and tech part. This is the green is anything for in link with the green transition, and blue must be everything, all the rest. So for instance, like you see that they finance part of the expansion of the metro. There must be an innovation center, cultural heritage preservation, healthcare. What else we have? Okay, another network, so a bit of infrastructure. A lab. Yeah, it's a bit surprising that. I mean, it's very nice. I mean, it's good that they have the map to do these things. Recovery is considered the metro is considered a recovery project. In an extent, because the recovery fund is not just like to repair damage of COVID, so also to support investment. And the idea is to say, okay, you have to do investment to keep the economy afloat and kickstart restart the economy. So you need heavy investment. And so the commission, the EU is saying, okay, you can do investment. We're giving you money for investment, but these investments to be directed towards certain priorities. So for instance, let's take the metro. The metro, you can say that it's useful for the recovery because, I don't know, you will expand the metro and you will make it greener. You will give further access to infrastructure to people who were not covered by the metro before. So in the end, it works for the benefit of everyone. You expand the scope of access to services to the population. You will finance innovation lab because say, okay, in these labs we're going to do research on, I don't know, green transition stuff, digital stuff, etc., etc. So it fosters research and everything. One of the criticism is that member states used it for project they add anyway, so little EU added value. True. I mean, it helps co-fund. It helps co-fund things. You can argue that indeed it's project that would have happened anyway, but then it's funds that are freed for something else. So you'd say in the end, yes, of course, like the expansion of the metro in Lisbon, it's not necessarily something that has an EU-wide importance, but in the end, it doesn't matter. What matters is that if there are good infrastructure in Lisbon, people get access to services, etc. In the end, it's good for the Lisbon economy, because also the Lisbon economy, the Portuguese economy, because you have an inflow of flow of cash into the economy. It provides better services, and you can use that also to green, for instance, the project, or unblock projects that you will not have been able to do because they were not a priority of these other things. Basically, a bit like the New Deal after the Great Depression, increase public spending. Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that indeed it's a way to kickstart the economy, restart a bit the economy. No, in the sense it's not direct, like it's not public spending. It's a lot of debt that was contracted by the Commission or by the EU, basically. And it's the first time that the EU contracted debt to finance this thing. But it's not on the same scale as the New Deal for the Great Depression, because the New Deal, so the Great Depression was in the US in the 30s, where the economy crashed basically, and to restart it, was it Roosevelt who launched the what was called the New Deal. So wave of heavy public spending, basically to give jobs. And so you had huge works to do dams, infrastructure, this sort of thing, to just throw money at the economy, and in the end, jobs to people. The recovery fund is not fully that. It's you have this idea, okay, we need to support the economy and put money there to support people to an extent, but it's also in a way to feed certain priorities. You say, okay, we need to throw money to restart the economy, but this money needs to be particular. Actually, what we want this money for is to do the green transition, to do the digital transition, this sort of thing. So the philosophy is slightly different. But it's true, like, look at the scale of Portugal. It's true that in the end you don't have that many projects, or at least that currently appear. Okay, so actually I was guessing the color coding, but you have it there. So green was green transition, blue smart, sustainable and inclusive growth, so innovation, orange social and territorial cohesion, red is health and economics, purple is transformation, and policies for the next generation. I have no clue what actually that means. What is that? Student accommodation at affordable price. Okay, so it's for youth policies, more or less. What do we have here? Yeah, student accommodation. Okay, so it's things for youth and students. Yeah. Yeah, look, Spain. Spain, you have reforms and that's it. You don't have like information on the projects. France, I saw a project that. Do we need to zoom more? I'm not crazy, like I saw. Okay, no, I know. I know. Because I'm still looking at Portugal. So we need to look at France, and there I have all the French projects. Okay. That's me who's trying to be a bit too fast with things. But yeah, anyway, you understand the idea. That's the way to do a bit the follow-up on the RF. Can you see how many projects are there in the EU by category? Like there are 100 green transition projects. Oh, I'm sure that, I mean, if you have these kind of things, I'm certain that you have, you must have an EU-wide. Okay, let's see, country page. Is there something EU-wide? Activities. Blah, 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 blah. I'm sure it must exist somewhere. Like if you have, I mean, if you have the data at national level, you will have an EU-wide mapping of it. That's, yeah, you can see all countries. Can I? No, I can't just select it. Yeah, but the info must be somewhere. It's a matter of like finding where on the website, but yeah, the data is there for sure. For sure. All right. What else did I wanted to discuss? So cohesion policy, we discussed that. Ukraine. So yeah, because Ukraine, I asked a question about Ukraine because they have among their members association from Ukraine. And as you probably know, Ukraine would like to join the EU, but it's creating a lot of discussions because of the potential impact of it. Because, let's go back to our map from before. Okay, look at this map. Beautiful map. You see, the red is very concentrated in some countries. And one issue, one worry around the adhesion of Ukraine in the EU is that once Ukraine, that is their huge country, joins after a war, well, their needs are going to be much, much higher than a current Polish region, or a Greek region, or a Portuguese region. Because in comparison, like they will be much more behind because there was a war, because the country is historically poor, etc. And so that means that many of the money that is currently in red Well, actually, that will go to Ukraine. And so they will become orange and they will lose a lot of money. No, Ukraine is absolutely huge. It's absolutely huge, Ukraine. And so many countries are worried that, oh, actually, currently, I'm a net beneficiary of the EU. So what does that mean? When you look at the budget of the EU and the contribution of member states. So member states write a check every year to the EU to finance the budget. And you look at what they get back from the EU. If you get more money back from the EU than you give, you are what is called a net beneficiary. You benefit more from the EU than you give back. If you give more money than you receive from the EU, you're a net contributor. If you're a net contributor, that doesn't mean that the EU is not in your interest. It's just that in terms of pure direct financial stream of money, you get less. Like for instance, take France. France is a net contributor, so France gives more money than it gives back, that it receives back, because as you can see, its regions are not as behind economically than other regions, but it benefits greatly from the EU on many other things that are not financial. Erasmus, the single market, all these are things that benefit greatly the country and the French economy, but it's not directly a check that the EU makes. So even if you're a net contributor to the EU, you give more money than you receive, actually you still get a huge benefit from the EU from things that are not direct funding, not a direct check from the EU. Anyway, what many countries are afraid of is that when Ukraine joins, the needs will be so great for Ukraine that they will go from being a net beneficiary, so they receive more money from the EU than they give, to become a net contributor, that they would have to give more money to the EU than they receive back in terms of direct funding, because everything would go to Ukraine. And so the question is, how do we manage this so that it doesn't become a huge shock to regions that were receiving a lot of money from the EU to develop themselves, and suddenly they cut the funding because Ukraine has joined. You have other consequences, like for instance, also in agriculture. Ukraine is a massive power in terms of agriculture. So the day they join, well, that means they will get a huge portion of the EU agricultural policy, which for now is very much concentrated, beneficial for, let's say, for France, for Poland, for some country, and this money will go same thing to Poland, to Ukraine, and they will be able to flood the market, and so there's a question of competition, etc. So there's a lot of questions on the impact of Ukraine joining the EU, which is why, and Federica Bordelot said it, Ukraine joining the EU is something that needs to be organized, that needs to be looked at very carefully, because Ukraine joining is not the same thing as, let's say, Slovenia joining. The sheer size, the sheer impact is way different. It has a big impact on everyone else. I kind of know the answer, but want to see your opinion on this. What is the endgame of the EU to welcome Ukraine as a member? The endgame. Well, I mean, it's not really a question of the endgame. Ukraine wants to join the EU. The population of Ukraine wants to join the EU. If the EU accepted the candidacy, now it's a matter of Ukraine fulfilling the criteria to join the EU, because you're not joining the EU like this. It takes a very long time, especially in the case of Ukraine. Don't expect Ukraine to join. Don't expect Ukraine to join before 10-15 years at the bare minimum, because of everything that needs to be done, and not even mentioning the war. But no, I mean, the end game of the EU is just to be a space of countries that are democracy, respect the rule of law, share a single market and values and everything. It's not there's not an end game, a particular end game for the EU to, let's say, go grab countries. That's not that's not the objective. Like, they're not trying to expand territory just for the sake of expanding territory. There is an end game. Let's say Ukraine has an end game in joining the EU, because for Ukraine, joining the EU means kind of being a bit more protected against Russia, kind of, gaining access to a lot of financial support, gain access to a single market, develop the country. So there is an end game for Ukraine. Ukraine has an, that's why countries want to join the EU. There is an end game for Ukraine to want to join the EU. The EU does not have per se an end game. It doesn't expand for the sake of expanding, or because it wants something. It doesn't want access to resources, etc., etc. It says, okay, we are the European Union. We have a scope that is the EU. If countries that are within Europe want to join and that they fulfill the conditions, okay, let's talk. But it's not like there's not a strategy of the EU to try to expand to Ukraine. That's the argument that like Putin is playing the paranoia. Oh, the West is trying to expand and threaten Russia. That's the bullshit. That's not how it works. Does that make sense? I'll take that as a yes. All right. It does. Okay, cool. Cool. I'm just looking at the time. Okay. So yeah, Ukraine adhesion and the impact that it may have on regions, notably. And yeah, the other points are not as important. I'd say we're already 2 hours in. Is there anything you want me to rant about or discuss? Whether linked to the interview, whether linked also to something else. Let's say that now is the moment where you can ask me random stuff. Well, not random stuff about the EU, but if you have questions that you want me, stuff you want me to clarify, that's the moment. In the meantime, I move that. Otherwise, if you don't have anything, we do the conclusion, and we can go on a merry way and enjoy our evening. Have dinner in my case. Making sense is not my greatest thing. Oh, you undersell. You underestimate yourself. No brains. All right, I'll give you a second. In the meantime, just checking a couple of stuff. Boom. Wait, what? Did you know that Greece and Cyprus has stolen all our degree of warmth in our spring and they're having a... well, that's... Don't tell me about Greece and Cyprus. I mean Belgium. I mean Belgium. What do you think it's like here? I mean, the Belgian weather has been insane. Like, one day you would think you're in June, the next you would think you're in November. So, you know, I just gave up on the making sense of the weather in Brussels and in Belgium. So I resigned myself to my fate there, but yeah, good for the Greeks and the and Cyprus. Although my colleague was in Sicily, and he was telling me that actually the weather was kind of crap there. Climate change is an hoax. Oh, no, I don't think so. I think there's been quite a few things. All right. All right, lads. If there's no other question, let's start a little bit of a conclusion. So, I hope that you enjoyed today's stream. Today's I knew you were sarcastic. Don't worry about it. I hope that you enjoyed the stream, that you enjoyed the interview and everything. As usual, if you don't follow already, follow the channel. If you have a Prime lying around, toss a coin to a streamer. That's always appreciated. Otherwise, go on my socials, Twitter, Discord, all the good thing. You get the memes, you get the program, you get everything. Next time we see each other. Tomorrow, I'm not streaming, but I will be appearing on the stream of another streamer. It will be in French, but I'm very much looking forward to this. I'll be appearing on Backseat, which is the biggest political show on the French Twitch. I'm invited there for a special show about European elections. They will be streaming from Strasbourg, the parliament in Strasbourg. So tomorrow I'm going to Strasbourg to appear on the show. So I'm very much looking forward to it. So if you're French speaking, go there. I will post the link on my Twitter. It's Jean Massier. Me, actually. How do you do a shout out? Shout out. How do you do shout out? Shout out. I don't know how do you do the shout out. Ah. Yeah. Oh shit. I'll put it on Discord. Anyway. So yeah, tomorrow I'm in Strasbourg for the stream. I will put the link on Discord so you can follow everything if you want. On Friday we have the news review in French at 5. Where we're gonna do a debrief of the stream or debrief of Backseat in French and discuss a bit about the news. And otherwise, it's gonna be next week news review. To be honest, I don't know what I'm gonna do next week because. This week has been very busy, as you may imagine, so I haven't really had time to work on the agenda for next week. So it's gonna be a surprise for me as well what we're gonna do next week. But yeah, in any case, stay connected. And yeah, that's pretty much it for me today. I wish you all a very good evening, and I hope to see you all either tomorrow on Friday for the French speakers or next week for more adventures. Bye everyone, have a good one. Ciao.